Hello, pup parents, and welcome to today's episode of the Perfect Pup Podcast. My name is Devin. Too often, as pup parents, our dogs do things that we don't want them to do. And in the heat of the moment, we try and fix the behavior. We try and think we're going to train this out right now as it's happening. And as you've probably started to find out for yourself, and I've learned with my dogs, trying to train in the heat of the moment rarely works. It's just not a recipe for success. So in this episode, we're going to talk about some other strategies and things you can do to be more proactive and help better train your dog. So let's get right into it. In high school, I played soccer. I loved my coach. He was a great influence on me. And looking back, he really understood this concept of being proactive. I remember as a high school kid thinking like most high school kids, that I knew everything. And we would run this drill and we would run it over and over and over again. It would get to the point where as teammates, as high school kids, we were like, really, coach, we have to keep doing this over and over. Like, we're going to practice pushing the ball out to the wing and crossing it in and attacking the ball. We're going to practice this over and over. And it was so boring and we kind of hated it. But what happened was we became so good at that during games, that kind of muscle memory just switched on. And it was like, hey, we've practiced this so many times. And what was ironic was that I had the same coach all through high school. In my sophomore year, during games, sometimes he'd be screaming at us from the sidelines, or at halftime, he'd say, push it out to the wings and cross it in. You got to attack the ball. He'd be telling us these things, but in the heat of the moment in those games, it was hard for us to kind of learn and really make those things happen. And as I progressed with that coach, junior, senior year, I saw him get smarter as a coach and coach us more efficiently by practicing those things over and over and over during practice. Because the old adage of how you practice is how you play is so true. And that theory rings true for our dogs as well. Too often, our dog starts doing something, let's say, for example, jumping up on guests when they come through the door. And in that moment, we start kind of panicking internally, and let's try and redirect the dog or call them to us or tell them to get off or whatever it might be. Whereas if we were to step back and practice those behaviors outside of the real moment where they're happening, just like those soccer plays, we would have much more success when the actual game is happening, when people are actually coming through the door. When the moment's happening where our dog is doing something that we don't want, oftentimes we get stressed and our ability to communicate with our dogs decreases. And naturally, things just don't go as well. So here's what we can do as pup parents to just better set our dogs up for success. Really, what I found, it comes down to making a plan and practicing. Just like my coach made us practice pushing the ball out to the wing and crossing it in, we have to practice with our dogs in kind of made up scenarios, right? Or not real scenarios, but realistic scenarios. So for example, guests coming to the door and our dogs jumping up on them. What we've started doing in our house, it's given us great results. My dogs are by no means perfect at this, but we've seen improvements. We will do dedicated training sessions where we work on the place behavior. We've decided that we want the replacement behavior for jumping up or crowding guests at the door or barking when someone knocks on the door. We want the replacement behavior to be to go to their place. So what we've done is we've done place practice. We will do a couple simple ones, get them on their place for a few seconds, release them, call them back, increase the time, start adding in a few distractions, just building up that kind of base layer. But then we will do fake knocking. We'll either inconspicuously knock on the door, or one of us will go outside and knock on the door while the other one's in there being able to practice. And what it does, if nothing else, it gives us as the humans that moment of, okay, I know no one's actually coming the door. I don't have to be embarrassed. I don't have to be overwhelmed. I know what's going to happen. I can be more cool and collected as I'm training this behavior for my dog. And you've probably noticed this in yourself, that when you're able to sit down and say, okay, this is the behavior we're going to work on, you kind of anticipate and know what bad things might happen or what mistakes might happen for your dog. And it allows you to be a little bit more focused and attentive to really teaching what you do want versus focusing so much on the bad. So I hope that you can just think of being proactive with your training and recognizing that in the moment, it's a very challenging time to be trying to teach your dog. So, as much as you can, practice before the actual game, right? Practice before those potentially triggering situations are happening for your dog. And I can guarantee you that you will have more success with your dog's behavior if you can approach it from a situation where you are in a little bit more control of the variables and environment, and you can better set your dog up for success. Because so much of what we do is giving our dogs the ability to succeed and then reinforcing those behaviors as they happen. So I know this was a bit of a kind of not metaphorical, but a more of a abstract look at how we're training our dogs. I hope this gets you thinking on how you can look at those challenging behaviors that your dog has and find ways to create a plan and practice, practice, practice before it's actual game day. If you found this episode helpful, please forward it to another pup parent and leave a review on Apple Podcasts if you haven't already. It's extremely helpful for this podcast getting more exposure. But other than that, we will catch you on the next episode.